3, 2, 1. We are live now. You can start after 5 seconds.
A very good afternoon and a very warm welcome on the occasion of the World Heart Day. Heart being one of the most vital organs of a human body, we are, very much concerned about getting heart disease, maybe more than any other disease. Okay. However, at the same time, we may not be equally vigilant about the risk factors which may lead somebody to suffer from a heart disease. And considering this, the topic for today's discussion is managing risk factors to prevent as well as treat heart diseases. Now, to discuss on this topic, we have one of the most eminent speakers across the country, uh, Dr. Satyamurthy. So Dr. Satyamurthy currently is the Director of Department of Cardiology at Apollo Hospital, Chennai. He is the recipient of many awards, including the prestigious Padma Shri Award from the Government of India. He has also been awarded with Tansa Award from Medical Sciences 2010, Best Doctor Award MGR University 2011, and Dr. B.C. Roy National Award 2001. He has close to 218 publications in national and international peer-reviewed journals as well as textbooks to his credit. He also serves as the adjunct professor, School of Medicine, University of Queensland, Australia, and adjunct professor, cardiology, at Dr. MGR Medical University. Welcome, Dr. Satyamurthy. And with this, I will hand it over to Dr. Satyamurthy. During as well as post discussion, I request all the audience to ask questions on the platform through which you are joining. And with this, I will hand it over to Dr. Satyamurthy. Over to you, sir. You can share your screen now.
Thank you, Dr. Mayur, and share the slides. Are you able to see now? No.
Not yet, sir.
Sir, I would request you to please speak without the headphones on. Your voice will be louder. Please disconnect.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's much better
please
now.
Increase your device volume.
Now I am trying to share my. Are you able to see the slide now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mayur. It is my pride, privilege, and honor to be here on the invitation of Glenmark Pharma on this occasion of World Heart Day. In fact, this is the 20th World Heart Day globally. It started in the year 2000, and this is the 20th year, and I'm glad to be participating in this virtual meeting. And the topic what I have been requested to talk is on the very simple but very practical and most useful, that is the managing risk factors to prevent as well as treat heart diseases. How to go to the next slide?
So you can just press the.
Yeah. There are certain risk factors for producing heart attacks. When I am saying coronary artery disease, basically we are talking about acute heart attacks, impending heart attacks, that is called unstable angina and non-ST segment elevation myocardial infarction, and also chronic stable angina. These patients can have once in a way chest pain or angina when it is aggravated by certain risk factors or exercise or effort. These risk factors are classified into two types: modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable risk factors. Coming to non-modifiable risk factors, one is gender. It is more common in men. And as age advances, naturally the vessels will become more and more stiffer, and there is the atherosclerosis process is an ongoing process in the body. So there will be atherosclerotic lipid plaques which can suddenly rupture and produce a thrombus over it and produce angina or myocardial infarction. Third is family history of premature coronary artery disease. If there is a history of coronary artery disease in the family, parents or siblings, they can exhibit coronary artery disease much earlier, and this is one of the worst risk factors. And what do I mean by premature is in men below the age of 40, in women below the age of 50, when they develop coronary artery disease, called premature coronary artery disease. Fourth is postmenopausal woman. Menopause, because of their women get certain privileges by the production of hormones like estrogens, they are protected. So when this hormonal protection goes, post-menopausal, it can be either surgical menopause or natural menopause. They are more prone for coronary artery disease. It is said that the percentage of women and men suffering from coronary artery disease 1.5:1. As age advances, this gap becomes more and more narrow. It becomes 1.3:1, and post-menopausal women as low as 1.1 or 1.2:1 compared to the same age and same amount of risk factors. When you compare with the male gender, the gap becomes narrower and narrower. Last but not the least is racial. Certain races are less prone for coronary artery disease, like Japanese and Mediterraneans. But Indians and Asians other than Japanese are more prone to develop coronary artery disease. Even if these Asians are staying either in Europe, UK or US, even if they get migrated because of that ethnic preponderance, they are more prone to develop coronary artery disease. Then coming to modifiable risk factors. The most common and worst is diabetes. If one keeps diabetes under control, keep checking their blood sugars and keep their HbA1c below 7, their chance of getting coronary artery is much less than those people whose HbA1c is more than 8. Similarly, people who have got long duration of diabetes are having more risk compared to recent onset diabetes. Third is insulin dependent diabetic patients are more prone than non-insulin dependent. Like that, there are certain subsets of diabetics who are more prone, particularly those diabetics who are obese with multiple risk factors. Second modifiable risk factor is smoking. People who smoke either actively, nowadays of course passive smoking is very much minimized. Previously in offices, people used to smoke, bars, pubs, hotels and clubs, mainly clubs when they are playing cards, they smoke. So the passive smokers have got almost 50 to 60% chance of inhaling the same tobacco as compared to those who smoke. Third is chewing tobacco is also very bad. Chewing tobacco also will have the same effect, either chewing or trying to take tobacco in the form of in the pan or with the betel nuts. It is also bad. So smoking is next controllable risk factor. Then is hypertension, high BP. Blood pressure, many people think very severe high BP is only the risk factor. But even mild hypertension, when it is there for long duration of time, it can affect the blood vessels. And they are prone to have more cardiovascular disease. I'm using the word vascular because the blood pressure not only affects the coronary arteries, but also peripheral vessels, cerebrovascular vessels. So they are more prone for strokes also. Then obesity, any BMI more than 25 is considered as obesity, and they are prone for, there are two types of obesities. One is apple-shaped obesity and other is pear-shaped obesity. Pear-shaped obesity is more common in women because of hormonal changes. And there is, this obesity is there, the body fat content goes up and they are more prone for coronary artery disease. Then cholesterol. The worst cholesterol are total cholesterol, then LDL cholesterol. If LDL cholesterol is, if there are no risk factors below 40 years, 130 is supposed to be the goal. People when they are above 40 years, when one or two risk factors, the goal is 100. People already suffered one coronary attack or having some amount of coronary artery disease, it should be less than 70. Now they say lower the better. The cutoff values for LDL-C cholesterol is 50 milligrams percent. And there is something called good cholesterol, that is called HDL. We don't want to talk about it now because very few maneuvers are there which can really increase HDL. If you reduce total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, half the battle is won. But HDL can be improved by stoppage of smoking, reduction of alcohol usage, and regular exercises. And then next worst risk factor is dietary habits. People who are habituated to take high fatty diet, particularly animal proteins like pork, beef, meat, they are really exposing themselves to high cholesterol levels. It is called exogenous cholesterol. Even if cholesterol levels are low, these people are prone to accumulate LDL-C over the period of time. And next risk factor is physical inactivity. We recommend people to walk at least half an hour to 45 minutes per day, at least 5 days a week. That is the minimum required activity. If it is good enough. If they can want to play some games, it's very good. Otherwise, this is the minimum exercise required, particularly even in the elderly people. Then stress. Stress is of 4 types: physical, psychological, emotional, and mental stress. People keep on worrying what will happen tomorrow, what will happen to their children, will they get good marks, and all that. This is mental stress. Physical stress is exerting too much. And emotional stress. So, for example, if there is a loss of somebody, that they keep on thinking about it, that is emotional stress. Psychological stress is where there is no reason or rhyme or reason, still they keep worrying about it. That's called psychological stress. All these things are really bad, and they are all modifiable risk factors. So how you can prevent or reduce the occurrence of coronary artery disease? By lifestyle modification. So the one needs really good counseling. If the people have got any risk factor like hypertension or diabetes, their physicians always advise them. Otherwise, many clubs like Lions Club, Rotary Club keep conducting meetings for the people, public. Third is the pharma industry is actively involved these days to educate the people how to reduce their risk factors or minimize the risk of coronary artery disease. Quit smoking. There's no point of reducing smoking. Either you'll quit it or you continue it. Better is suddenly quit on a particular day and don't restart it. Initially, when they stop it, there'll be difficulty in managing. They don't get sleep. Their appetite goes up. But still, over a period of time, when once they stop it, they don't like to restart it. They don't even like others smoking in front of them or near them. How to improve the cholesterol? Well, as I said, exogenous cholesterol or lipid diet should be taken care of. One should not eat high fatty food. Should be a balanced diet, like enough of carbohydrate, fats, and proteins, mostly proteins. Better to take proteins of the plant-based proteins and cereals. And in animal-based proteins, better is to take lean meat like chicken or fish or white of the egg. These are the things better to continue, and try to reduce the deep fried items. They are the people who are likely to gain weight and also gain cholesterol. If there are risk factors like diabetes should be kept under control, and low carbohydrate diet, regular exercises, keep a close watch on their weight, and keep checking with their doctor at least once in quarter, that is once in 3 months. Control blood pressure. If the patient has got hypertension, BP should be well under control with drugs and low salt diet and other supportive line of treatment which I mentioned right now. And one should be very active, like I said just now, 30 to 40 minutes of regular exercises for at least minimum of 5 days a week is essential. one must involve in aerobic activities like brisk walking, jogging, cycling, swimming. These are the exercises. If one is really fitness freak, and many of these people buy nowadays these digital watches, Apple watches. So in that they can have at least 10,000 steps a day minimum to burn their calories. So what are the final points is that eat right, and if you are taking excessive calories, you tend to gain weight, put on weight, and also you will have tendency to increase your cholesterol. So even if you eat one day extra, next day better to balance your diet. That is the way how you have to balance your diet, and try to keep a close watch on your weight, and try to do yoga, meditation, pranayam, breathing exercises. Cut down salt as low as possible. Cut down your fat intake as low as possible. And keep having regular checkups. At least once in 6 months, one must have a master health checkup, even if there are no risk factors. Of course, if you have risk factors, it is more frequently you have to get your blood sugars checked up. Thank you very much. Any more questions? I'll be more than happy to answer your queries.
Thank you very much, sir.
This year, the theme of World Heart Day is through your heart, save your heart. That is the theme of this 2020. So if you have to put in your heart and mind on your own heart, you can definitely save it. And people who are in professions like doctors or people who they have to communicate to others and spread the message to save their hearts by putting their heart in reducing their risk factors.
Thank you very much, sir, for that excellent deliberation on the risk factors and also the management of these risk factors. So we do have a few questions from the audience. So the first question is, what is coronary artery disease? How does it happen in an individual?
The basic pathology is atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis means there will be fat deposition in the subintimal layers of the smooth blood vessels, and those blood vessels which carry the blood to the heart is called coronary arteries. When there is fat deposition because of the aging process, or also because of the risk factors, that is called atherosclerosis. These atherosclerotic plaques are very dormant. When there are risk factors, they progress very fast. Over a period of 5 to 10 years, they become more and more severe. When the blood vessel narrowing becomes more than 70%, the blood flow in that artery gets reduced. That produces less blood supply in that area. If the person is taking good rest or sedentary job, he may tolerate. Suddenly he is climbing steps, or he is carrying some weights in the railway station and walking fast. When there is exercise, when the heart rate goes up, automatically BP also will go up. During that time, the blood supply to the heart muscle goes down. They develop chest pain. This is called angina. If that chest pain continues for a long time, that is called unstable angina. Whenever these plaques, because of certain risk factors like high BP or diabetes, suddenly ruptures, there will be a blood clot formation over that plaque. That is called vulnerable plaque. When there is a blood clot formation on that vulnerable plaque, the blood flow is totally obstructed, then they develop heart attack. When there is a total loss of cutoff of blood supply, that is myocardial infarction or heart attack. This is the whole spectrum of coronary artery disease, starting from erythematous plaques to development of heart attacks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The next question is, why does diabetes cause heart disease in a particular individual? Or rather, how does diabetes cause heart disease? How is it a risk factor for heart disease?
Diabetes is a metabolic disorder. It affects the blood vessels in the whole of the body, major as well as minor, that's called microvascular, even small vessels. Take the example of retina. Many diabetics develop vision loss. That is because of the retinal blood vessels. Similarly, in the kidney, there are small blood vessels. So there can be microvascular disease in the kidney. Slowly, it can erode the kidney. That's why many diabetics develop nephropathy. So diabetes is basically a vascular disease. Because of the high blood sugars, it along with it, there will be some sodium and potassium imbalance in the kidney. So they develop hypertension. Because of the metabolic disorder, they develop high cholesterol. So these are called clustering of risk factors. Diabetes, they develop obesity, hypertension, high dyslipidemia, that's called high cholesterol, and then it cascades the risk factors. Then the BP starts going up. That will again erode the kidney. So it is a progressive vascular disease of not only major vessels, but also microvascular diseases. That is how it affects the system, whole vascular system. That is why people of diabetes are more prone for strokes, more prone for kidney diseases, and also peripheral vascular disease. That's called blood supply to the legs will get hampered. That is the reason why many diabetics develop gangrene of the toes and feet. That is how the vascular disease. So basically, a diabetes is a vascular disorder because it's a metabolic disease.
Thank you, sir. Uh, so in one of your slides, you also mentioned that being postmenopausal is also one of the risk factors for heart disease. So do all the women, because every woman is going to be postmenopausal, does it put every woman at risk of heart disease? And how being postmenopausal increases risk of heart disease?
No, or not all women. People who are multiparous, having 3-4 children, they are less prone for coronary artery disease. Those who are obese are more prone for. Those who have got other risk factors like diabetes, high BP, they are more prone for. Those who develop premature menopause, that means at the age of 40 years, that hormonal protection goes away. So they are the people who are likely to develop. Only thing is, as menopause occurs, either surgical or natural menopause occurs, they start behaving like men as regarding the coronary artery risk factors. It is said that God has been really partial to women because men are more likely to develop heart attacks than women. In fact, one of my teachers used to say, women are meant to give heart attacks to men. So that is the slogan those days. So now, as they are also working, they are also under competition, they are also under stress at home. Even housemaker is under stress. So the slowly risk also is increasing compared to men. So not all women, but depends upon the degree of risk factors and other comorbidities like obesity, hypercholesteremia. Only point is that postmenopausal women must have more frequent checkups. They can't just neglect and have once a year checkup. That too, when their spouse coaxes them to have a checkup, then only they have. So these things should be avoided. Now they are also in a high risk group like men, so they should have frequent checkups.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The next question is, what are the percentage chances of a particular individual suffering from a heart attack if one of his parents has suffered from a heart attack? And is it possible to reduce the risk in this particular scenario by 100%?
See, again, if parents develop heart attack below the age of 40 years, premature, the risk is very high. So some of them will have genetic preponderance. That is called genetic phenotype. Whatever you do, if there are 4 children or 3 children for that father, or not necessarily all 3 should suffer, at least 2/3, at least 2 of them will suffer coronary artery disease. At what age, at what pace, at what severity depends upon their risk factors. So the genetic marker phenotype is very important. Second thing is people who develop premature coronary artery disease, beyond certain age, the risk is much less. So for example, father develops coronary artery disease at 60, 65. children may not have the same risk like a father who developed coronary artery disease prematurely at the age of 40. What is the point is that from our side, when there is a premature coronary artery disease, we should be very aggressive in treating any comorbidities like diabetes, high BP, hypercholesterolemia and all that. Normally, usually people check their cholesterol once in 6 months. But in this group, you must be very aggressive because there is already one risk factor. So you must bring it down as low as 70 or even lower. That is the slogan in these patients. Another thing, in people who develop sudden death below the age of 40 years, where they don't know what is the cause, but they know that their father suddenly died with chest pain or sweating, something like that. When we did coronary angiograms in young people, which we published also, many of them have the amount of atherosclerotic coronary artery disease, number one. Number two, some of them will have big coronaries, very large coronaries, where the blood flow is very, very slow. They are called coronary ectasia. These people are prone for thrombosis of those vessels. It is not the plaque rupture, it is because of slow flow, there is chance of blood clot formation. So these patients should be on aggressive antiplatelet drugs or to prevent thrombosis of the vessels, they should be on anticoagulants or antiplatelet drugs. That is very important to prevent from them developing heart attacks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Which are the inexpensive and feasible food options one can eat for good heart health?
High fiber diet, like green vegetables and things like radish, high fiber diets are very important. Try to, if patient's weight is okay, they can take what is called a good amount of calories. But if the person is having overweight, that body mass index is more than 25, each and every meal they should count the calories. And for example, if what we say is whatever you require to eat, at least eat 10% less in each meal. That is the slogan to prevent. It is not that it is one day's effort, it is whole life's effort. You have to keep a control on the weight.
Right, sir. Sir, during your talk, you said, you showed your preference towards plant-based protein. So, can a plant-based diet really reverse heart disease?
Very good question. A plant-based diet with control of risk factors in younger people, it can reverse coronary artery disease. It has been shown. If somebody brings down the cholesterol to 55, diabetes well under control, blood pressure under control, the atherosclerosis can be regressed. Initially, we used to think it is only an enigma. But last 10 years, there are studies where they are done IVUS. IVUS means intravascular ultrasound examination, and calculated the thrombus or plaque volume. After aggressively treating them for 3 to 6 months, they repeated this IVUS study and showed that there is atheroma regression in people. But it occurs in those people where you keep all the parameters under control and are bring down the only cholesterol down is not enough. They should stop smoking. They should go for regular exercises. Over and above, they should bring down the cholesterol levels as low as 50, 55. In such cases, one can regress, particularly in younger age group. As age advances, this regression keeps coming down. The percentage of people who regress comes down.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is raw food better than cooked food?
Raw food is always better. That is why we always recommend salads, particularly Europeans and all that they eat one meal totally salads and fruits. Fresh fruits, salads, high fiber diet is very important. Even if I would like to take any non-vegetarian, lean meat is better, like chicken, fish, white of the egg, and better to avoid deep fried items and better to take grilled items or boiled chicken and other things. That is better. One more point they say is alcohol is bad for health. Truly it is not. People who are taking excessive alcohol, it is bad. That is why we won't recommend, doctors won't, cardiologists won't recommend people to take alcohol. But if they are taking excess, 4 packs, 5 packs, bring it down to too large, maximum 2 to 3 times a week. For example, many of the business people would like to have a drink in a party or during a business meeting. We don't tell them to bring it down to 0, but don't take excess. Second thing is, while taking alcohol, one should not take deep fried items like peanuts, cashew and other things, because it will add on to your calories. Third thing, if somebody is taking, it is better to take wine. Wine has got cardioprotective action. It has got a lot of antioxidants. But red wine is bad for diabetics because it increases the cholesterol levels. So diabetics can take white wine. Non-diabetics, red wine is better, and it has got cardioprotective action. The maximum amount of alcohol allowed is 150 ml. By the way, I am not recommending people to take alcohol to prevent heart attacks. Those who are taking excess should modify their quantity as well as the amount type of alcohol what they take, that is red wine.
Thank you, sir. And now, since we are coming towards the end of this session, we will just finish with one last question. Do I need supplements for maintaining heart health?
If you are taking a healthy diet, no need to take supplements. And it is customary for us to give people above the age of 50 years, where at least 1 or 2 risk factors, to give 2 drugs. One is a statin. Statin is a drug which brings down the cholesterol. Second thing is one small dose of antiplatelet drug, that is to prevent the blood clots in the blood vessels. Usually we prefer aspirin if there are no contraindications like ulcer. By giving aspirin, we are not only preventing heart attacks, but also vascular events like cerebrovascular events like strokes. That is one. Second thing, somebody might argue that my cholesterol is only 100. Why you want me to take statin? Statin has got multiple actions. That's called pleiotropic actions. One of the major action is to bring down the cholesterol, or not to allow the cholesterol to go up. If it is already 100, 102, 104, we don't want it to go up. Second thing, it has got pleiotropic effects, means it stabilizes the plaque and it reduces the inflammatory response. And so that is the reason why you always add these 2 drugs in people who are at least above the age of 50 years and having at least 1 or 2 risk factors as a prophylactic measure. That which you also must have seen many people after a general checkup, mass health checkup or executive health checkup, they are usually put on one of these two drugs, or sometimes combination drugs are available, which we recommend them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So I thank Dr. Satyamurthy for the lucid presentation on the risk factors as well as management of these risk factors of heart disease. He also elaborated nicely on all the questions from audience, and at times also simultaneously gave important clinical evidence with respect to many questions. I also thank all the audience for joining with us and enhancing the beauty of this discussion with your important questions. Last but not the least, I also thank the technical team working in the background to make this event to be conducted smoothly. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.